Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to this new happy day. Our Creator breathed life into you this morning, and He breathed life into me this morning. We can breathe. You can breathe. I can breathe. And so, for that alone, we need to thank our Creator, whoever you identify Him as, God, higher power, the maker of the universe, the Creator, that higher power that is not you nor me, because man cannot wake you up this morning. Man cannot wake me up this morning, but the Creator chose us to wake up this morning, this moment, this minute, this hour, this happy new day. And for that alone, we should be grateful. We should give homage because of the fact that God, who I choose to call God, uses shattered, broken, and wounded people like you and like me to rescue wounded, shattered, and broken people like you and like me. And so this is day 54, happy new day 54, of the 12 steps being applied to COVID-19, presented by the F.R.E.E to Hope. F.R.E.E stands for From Recovery, Emerge Empowered, to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Sharing with you my 30 plus years of being in a 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, practicing the spiritual principles in all my affairs. Alcoholics Anonymous has been in existence for over 80 plus years. And as a result of me being introduced to AA at the age of 34, do your calculation, on February the 23rd of 2021, if God allows me to stay here on this earth doing my purpose, fulfilling my destiny, we will celebrate 31 years free from addiction and practicing these principles in all our affairs, which is why I believe I have been prepared, obligated, honored to sit before you to share my experience, my strength, my hope, and my wisdom of utilizing the 12 recovery principles in all my affairs, as well as in COVID-19. Yes, back in November, December of 2020, me and 7 family members contracted and survived COVID-19. You see my family members behind me, members of my family, 4 of my grandchildren, my loved ones. Oh, yes, we contracted, but we survived COVID-19. And that entitles me to sit before you to share with you my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom, my lack of wisdom, my decisions, my choices, both good and bad, how I contributed to contracting COVID-19 by not wearing the mask all the time, not washing my hands all the time, and definitely not practicing social distancing all the time. I was defiant. I was rebellious. I took COVID-19 for granted. I had that idea of being invincible. It won't touch me. It won't touch my family. But guess what? It did. And therefore, I feel honored to sit before you to share how I am now applying these 12 spiritual principles to COVID-19, which I didn't do before. Goes to show you how you can have the knowledge and don't use it. But as a result of surviving COVID-19, yes, my higher power say now you have 2 experiences to share utilizing these 12 recovery principles. One for your disease of alcoholism and this COVID-19 pandemic. So for that, I am truly honored, humbled, grateful. Yes, I do not and no longer take COVID-19 for granted. My 2-year-old grandson, my 7-year-old grandson, this is his cup. And had he succumbed to COVID-19 and I succumbed to COVID-19 and the fatalness of this pandemic, I would not be sharing this coffee cup with you. Yes. And my 2-year-old gave me a grandmom coffee cup, and he contracted COVID-19. And because he survived and I survived, I could not present his coffee cup either. So I do no longer take COVID-19 for granted, and therefore I am honored to sit before you to save one life, one loved one family, one culture, right? One community, one city, one state, one country. If we are to practice these principles in all our affairs that are spiritual in nature, using a spiritual angle to deal with these physical conditions, we can stop the perpetuation of COVID-19 pandemic. We may not have a cure for COVID-19, but we can stop the perpetuation of it. We can stop giving it to one another, exposing our loved ones to it. Yes, we can be a part of the solution by doing our part, because we know that there are some who did not meet the same outcome as me and my family members. So therefore, before we go any further, we definitely want to give homage to our Creator, and we want to acknowledge in a 30-second moment of silence for those who have lost loved ones to COVID-19, those who have succumbed to the fatality of COVID-19, those who are suffering at this very moment from COVID-19, those who are dying this very moment from COVID-19, those who will die today from COVID-19, those of us who want to prevent from contracting COVID-19, those who are intervening on other people's behalf regarding COVID-19, and yes, those of us who are still defiant and rebellious about COVID-19. We are going to include you in this moment of silence too, because collectively, but individually, if we all do our part, and if we all give this moment of silence for the entire human race, just maybe, that one life that could be yours, could be a loved one, could be your grandchild, could be your parents, could be your friend, your coworker, spared the fatality and the suffering brought about by COVID-19. So let's have this 30 seconds of silence in honor of the whole entire human race, that we may come to our senses, that we may embrace these 12 spiritual principles and apply them to COVID-19. We can change the direction of its elevation, its being able to increase. We can be a change agent individually and collectively if we all do it simultaneously. So let's have this moment for 30 seconds of silence. Would you join me? Thank you. And on the behalf of those who cannot speak, those who cannot breathe, those who are in recovery, I'm going to say thank you on their behalf. That is what we do in our 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Sex Anonymous, Lust Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. What about COVID-19 Anonymous? And I thank God that I have the transparency, the willingness to be truthful, the honesty to be open-minded, to share with you the how of the 12 steps. H is for honesty, O is for open-mindedness, and W is for willingness. And as we continue these morning conversations and detailing and examining and deciphering and assessing and evaluating and applying and practice the 12 steps that are spiritual in nature, that's going to create a psychic change used by Dr. Carl Jung and Dr. Bob and Bill W. When it was discovered through Dr. Carl Jung that the medical field is limited, the religious field is limited, what people with the disease of alcoholism need is a psychic change brought about through divine intervention and a spiritual awakening. And so we are going to apply those same principles to COVID-19 and addressing and challenging and acknowledging our attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, our decisions, our choices, our actions, and ask ourselves, are we in the prevention mode of COVID-19? Are we in the intervention mode of COVID-19? Or like me, are you in the restoration mode of COVID-19? Another question, are you being proactive regarding COVID-19? Are you being reactive to COVID-19? Or are you yet inactive regarding COVID-19? Do you, like I had, that attitude of being rebellious and defiant and stubborn and egotistical, right? And prideful? Nobody's going to tell me where to wear the mask. Nobody's going to tell me who to go around. Nobody's going to tell me when to wash my hands. Well, guess what? We're going to tell you this. You could die. Your loved ones could die. Other human beings could die because of that attitude, that idea, those actions, those behaviors, those decisions, those choices. Do you want to be responsible for the cause of someone's death? Do you want to be responsible for your own death? There is a solution, because in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, it is said that all human beings are ill to some extent, but all human beings can benefit from the wisdom of the 12-step program, as stated in Dr. James T. Allison's article in Psychology Today in March 2020 edition. He wrote in that caption how we as a human race can benefit from the wisdom of 12-step programs during the month of April, when we had our first shutdown, our first quarantine, our first isolation to stop the perpetuation of COVID-19. Here we are in a new year, in a new month. And that's why I say this is a happy new day, because COVID-19 is running rapid and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's why Dr. Allison, from an Al-Anon approach, which uses the same spiritual principles, said that if we embrace, learn, practice, apply these 12 spiritual principles, we can stop the perpetuation of COVID-19. Okay? So go back to Psychology Today, March 2020. Look up Dr. James T. Allison and read his 7 points that he mentions to combat COVID-19 during this pandemic, right? I also have presented to you Jason Waller's template of how he breaks down all of the 12 steps in a simplistic way. And the fact that he has gathered information from other resources and included his experience, strength, hope, and wisdom, he presented in a very simplistic way that a child can understand it, how and why these 12 spiritual recovery principles can work in all our affairs, and how we, for the purpose of changing the area of focus to COVID-19, we are going to use that same template. And so just like the other 12-step programs, they all use the same spiritual principles. So what I want to do is to encourage you to go to Jason Waller's website, JASONWAHLER. And as I get more acclimated with these presentations, I'm going to put those resources on the screen for you. But I was able to put the 12 steps on the screen, and I will, just to go and share with you what they are for those who know about them, those who need to be reacclimated to them, those who forgot about them, those who are using them just as a reminder. And we're going to change the area of focus from alcohol, gambling, love, narcotics, and replace it with COVID-19. So let me introduce to you those 12 steps that we are going to be focusing on for as long as our Creator allows us to have these conversations. All right, so what I'm going to do is okay, I did it. So recovery principle number 1 says, we admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So that should say defects of character regarding COVID-19. Okay. And also, we're going to go to the next slide, and it's going to read recovery principle number 7. Humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all regarding COVID-19. Recovery principle number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others regarding COVID-19. Number 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it regarding COVID-19. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out regarding COVID-19. And last but not least, number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, We try to carry this message to others regarding COVID-19 and practice these principles in all our affairs. So this way, you get to see how in their totality, but individually, can create that spiritual transformation to challenge our old attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. And experience that transformation to develop a psychic change, spiritual maturity, and adapt a greater. Okay, wait a minute. I just saw my screen blink out again. I got to put this battery in. Listen, I learned in recovery, you hit the pause button when you see something going on. So I'm going to charge up my computer so I can continue our conversation on applying the 12 steps to COVID-19. So, as a result of utilizing, if they work effectively and have been for a number of years with alcoholics, gamblers, workaholics, right? Drug addicts, they can also work with COVID-19 and addressing and developing through that psychic change, through that spiritual awakening, to look at this COVID-19 from a spiritual angle and use that to deal with it with the physical angle. Okay? And so that's why it is crucial to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And regardless of what man is trying to do, trying to find out, trying to develop vaccines, this and that, what the CDC says, what the research, what the data says, the statistics says, and your own and other people's personal experiences, and not being able to gain power over COVID-19. And that's why we have to admit we are powerless over COVID-19, that our lives is unmanageable. But there is something that we can do to prevent it from entering our lives, the lives of our loved ones, and other human beings. And so utilizing these 12 recovery principles can do that for all human beings who choose to make a decision to use them, right? It also says in our 12-step fellowship, some of us must die in order for some of us to live. As hard as that is to hear, I want you to listen because so many have died. Do you know that the reported numbers that 25 plus million Americans have been infected by COVID-19? 25 plus million of individuals are affected or have been affected with COVID-19. Now we are reaching the 500,000 reported of those who have succumbed to the fatality of COVID-19. So if we don't apply something different, if we don't apply what's been working in other areas of adversities in man's life, if we don't learn and apply and practice these 12 spiritual principles to combat COVID-19, more are going to die. More are going to be infected. But you and I can be a change agent by leading by example, by leading by an attraction. That's why, listen, I'm in my room, my little studio by myself, but it's important for me to demonstrate the necessity of wearing a mask all the time, even in your home if you have to. Because you don't know when people go out and people come in, when your children go to school and they come, you just don't know. And so wearing a mask And me applying these 12 spiritual principles now to COVID-19, you better believe I'm wearing my mask, I'm washing my hands, I am definitely practicing social distancing. I am no longer going to birthday parties for family. I am no longer going to dinners for family or friends. I am no longer going to public places where amusement parks and this. Oh, no, not me. I am only going out when I have to. And then when I do, I'm wearing my mask. I have my hand sanitizer. When I go into different places, I am going to start putting on my gloves, right? Washing my hands constantly. Social distancing, yes. Because I do not want to contract COVID-19 again. I'm telling you, back in December and November and December of 2020, I could not breathe to my fullest capacity. I could not taste. I could not smell. My body ached like a toothache. Fatigue, right? Oh my God. And that were not so much of a dramatic, they were not so much dramatic symptoms, but they were my symptoms and I suffered. Could you imagine how others are suffering? You do not want to contract COVID-19, and you definitely don't want to be responsible for infecting your loved ones or other human beings. And that's why these 12 spiritual recovery principles and the presentation to you was started on April the 1st of 2020 as a result of the article I read on March the 31st of Dr. James T. Allison, who stated we can benefit from the wisdom of 12-step programs. And it said the month of April 2020 when we first had our shutdown. But here's a new year and a new month, and it is still perpetuating. And so if you want to go back to my introduction of the 12 steps, please go back to April the 1st. And if you want to see the transparency and the transition in my process of having COVID-19, go back to my podcast from December the 3rd. You will see that at that time, I wasn't wearing a mask because I was in quarantine. I was in isolation and I could not breathe to my fullest capacity. You will see the pain in my face. You will see the pain in my eyes. You will hear it in my voice. I wanted to share with you what COVID-19 looked like from my perspective, right? My 2-year-old grandson, he had fevers for 4 or 5 days. We could only give him Tylenol, ibuprofen, right? The other grandchildren, they didn't have any symptoms. Out of all the 8 of us, only 2 of us had symptoms. The other were asymptomatic from 2 years old up until 78-year-old, right? So that's why on December the 3rd, for a number of days, I shared with you what COVID-19 looked like. And on my 65th birthday, December the 16th, is when I got my COVID-19 results from the nasal testing that said you are negative. Having tested positive previously twice, tested negative once, and now negative the final time because I've been restored to sanity. I no longer take this COVID-19 for granted, and I suggest you don't either, okay? And so what we have been doing, these conversations, is presenting you information as we break down in their totality all of the steps that are spiritual in nature. Now, let me see, because with these masks, and I don't care how many times I got to put it up, turn it down, it don't matter. Because in recovery too, they say, do you want to save your behind or do you want to save your face? And guess what? I want to save my behind. I want to save the little butts of my grandchildren, my loved ones, and I want to help save you so that each one can teach one. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to put these glasses on over that so they don't fog up, right? Okay, and now I'm going to go back to our conversation and provide a quick synopsis, overview, summary of what we have gone through so far. And to you the first 4 steps, and we are on number 4 now. But step 1, we admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives were unmanageable. Yes. And that is the only step that we have to admit 100% without any reservations, any hesitations. And that's why going to Jason Wahler, JasonWahler's website, extracting all the steps and going through the information, and then getting a journal or a notebook and asking and answering the questions that he posed. And we have been posing those questions since we have been conversating. And so those are the questions that's going to help you think and help you address your old attitudes, ideas, and behavior. It's going to challenge your present mindset to see if you are honest, if you are open to receiving additional information that's going to save your life, and are you willing to use the help? Oh, God, I'm willing to use the help now. No matter what the CDC says this, but some of them are hypocrites too. They don't wash their hands. Some of them don't wear masks. People in the general population, some of them don't wear their masks, don't wash their hands, they don't social distance, right? And so there's a serenity prayer that the 12th step used that Dr. James T. Allison mentioned, as well as Jason Wahler. That serenity prayer that you need to extract from the website and from the internet and read it, marinate on it, meditate on it. But we only use the first verse, but there's a whole prayer, okay? And so we use it in Alcoholics Anonymous. All the other 12-step programs use it too. And so we're going to apply it to COVID-19 as well. And it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so when we look at recovery principle number 1, we are powerless over COVID-19. It has, and continues to make our lives unmanageable in all areas of our lives, right? And so that serenity prayer will help us to accept the things we can change and ask for courage to change the things that we can. We can change our attitudes. We can change our belief system. We can change our behaviors. We can change our actions. We can make better choices, better decisions. Yes, we can. And the last part, the wisdom to know the difference. You want some wisdom? Do you want to die or do you want to live? Do you want your loved ones to die or do you want them to live? Do you want your grandchildren to die or do you want them to live? Do you want the entire population to die or do you want us to live? Then the wisdom to know the difference of what we can change and what we need to accept. And then ask for the courage to change the things we can. And most of us use the personal or individual part of the serenity prayer, where it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the person that I can, and the wisdom to know that that person is me. So I now know that I cannot take this COVID-19 for granted. I now know that it is real because it infiltrated my life and the lives of my family members. I now know that the mask, the washing hands, and the social distancing, and not going to public places and not going to family outings can save my life. I now know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it is my obligation, my duty, and my honor to help encourage you to do the same thing, to wear your mask, to take this thing seriously. Wash your hands, take this thing seriously. Social distancing, take this thing seriously. Look at your attitudes, your ideas, and behaviors, and utilize these 12 spiritual principles to gain a spiritual transformation and a psychic change to combat from a spiritual angle the effects of COVID-19. Okay? And so recovery principle number 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power, capital P, or powers greater than you and me restore us to sanity. I have been restored to sanity, and sanity only means soundness of mind. As a result of these conversations we have been having these 54 days, and if you go back to April the 1st of 2020, have you been restored to sanity? Have you been restored to soundness of mind? Are you getting it? Or are you still in denial? Are you just hearing? But we want you to listen. Don't get caught up in the messenger. Get caught up in the message. Because the way I looked in December, no dentures, no makeup, no nothing but my crown and my royalty makeup, right? It represents my culture and it represents my heritage. And you need to do the same thing for your culture, your heritage, your traditions. Yes. So we need to be restored to soundness of mind. Those who have been diligently and violently doing what they are supposed to do, we thank you. But guess what? I want to charge you to share how it's been working with you, to share how your attitudes, ideas, and behaviors were formulated for you to approach this thing and accept the seriousness of it. So you need to share your experience, your strength, your hope, your wisdom to others. All of us can share one way, shape, form, or fashion. Are we in the prevention mode, the intervention mode, or the restoration mode? Are we being proactive, reactive, or yet inactive? We are all in this together, and we can all share to help one another live, breathe, taste, smell. Yes. Ask those individuals who have lost loved ones to COVID-19 what they would have done differently, how they've been restored to soundness of mind. Okay, so go to Jason Waller website, extract recovery principle number 2 and answer those questions. That brings us to recovery principle number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So if I have been COVID-free, right, and members of my family since testing positive, and now all of us are negative. So if I have been restored to sanity, based on the power or powers greater than me, why wouldn't I, in recovery principle number 3, make that decision to continue turning my will and my life over to that power or powers greater than me, as I understand them? I will make that decision because we make decisions all day long. We make decisions to be defiant or in compliance. We make decisions to be humble or prideful, right? We make the decision to put on the mask or take off the mask. We make the decision to wash our hands or don't wash. Guess what? If you have been restored to sanity or need to be restored to sanity, and you see that it's working, make that decision on a daily basis, just like we do in Alcoholics Anonymous and all the other 12-step programs. We continuously make that decision because it's working. Okay? Now, recovery principle number 4 is the one that we are on. This is part 2 of the breakdown. And you know what? I'm going to get my other glasses because they tend to work a little better. And and one of the steps, it says, utilizing the 12 recovery principles is like putting on a new pair of glasses. You see things more clearly. Well, I can attest to that, all right? So this is part 2 of step 4, because wait a minute, y'all. Let me take a sip of cup of coffee. Let me take a drink. See, they go my pearly white teeth. They're dentures, right? Cocaine and alcohol took them, right? And guess what? Had I succumbed to COVID-19, I'll be buried or cremated without them. I got a sense of humor. What can I say? So let's take a toast. Let's make a toast to applying the 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to combating and stopping the perpetuation of COVID-19. Are you going to toast with me? Are you going to do your part? Let's take a drink of coffee. I can breathe. I can taste. I can swallow. I can smell. Oh my God. I can see, I can touch, I can feel. I can hug my grandchildren. I can hug my family members. Do you know those who are suffering right now with COVID-19, how they would want to change places with you? And that's why we can't take this for granted. All right. So for recovery principle number 4, we know that steps 1, 2, and 3 says in concept, but in actuality, I can't. Okay? He can. Whoever you identify that power that's greater than ourselves. And we're going to make a decision to let him. But step 4 is the first tangible writing experience exercise in the 12-step program of all the areas of focus. And we want to do the same thing and apply them to COVID-19. But it takes the approach of learning who you are, how you was able to obtain those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. Where did they formulate? Where did they start? By whom? What situations? What circumstances? In other words, you do an inventory of your life as far back as you can remember as to where those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors and actions, those decisions, those choices were first formulated, so that we can find out what happened to us and not think like most of us think, and alcoholics and drug addicts, that something is wrong with you, something is wrong with us. No, we need to find out what happened. And I give credit to Dr. Alvin Turner for bringing that to my attention. Edwina, we are asking the wrong question. When we see people not wearing their masks, when we see people in defiance and being rebellious, we don't want to say what's wrong with them. We want to ask them, what happened to you to make you not take this thing seriously? What happened to you to give you that feeling that you're invincible? Tell me, help me to understand what happened to you. So recovery principle number 4 does that. All right. And so I shared with you what Jason Waller described when he talked about, people have a tendency to be afraid to look at themselves, unwilling to look at themselves, suspicious of wondering what they're going to find out about themselves. So they would rather not look at themselves. But if you have a foundation in recovery principle number 1, you know your problems over COVID-19, and your life is unmanageable, and you have a foundation, and knowing that a power, capital P, or powers greater than you have restored you to sanity, and you made that decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of, then you have the foundation that we got you. You are not doing this alone. But in order for us to really, really, really find out what we are made of, how we were made, and what needs to be changed in our personality, in our thinking, in our attitudes, in our beliefs, what needs to be changed. And unless you are willing to look at yourself honestly, open-minded, and willing to do it, you will never recover. You will never be set free. So when we look at recovery principle number 4, and there's some fear, and he talks about it, instead of forgetting everything and run, no, in recovery, we learn to face everything and recover. Face everything and recover. So the fourth step is a way to identify your patterns, your triggers, right? How your buttons are pushed, how you push other people's buttons. In other words, your character defects and your character assets. There is a balance sheet. But unless you are willing to look at yourself honestly, in an open mind, and being willing to look at yourself to find out why and how those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors were formulated to the point where you know you should do what is right, but you choose to do what is wrong. You knowingly believe that people are liars, and so are you. And you wonder why you criticize them and judge them. But when it comes for them to criticize and judge you, we become defensive. Why? What happened to you? What happened to me? To have that attitude of defiance, rebellious, pride, ego, stubbornness, self-centeredness in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic? All right, so let's see what else he says. So he basically said we need to gain some information, because when we look at ourselves, we gain information. It says the benefits of completing step 4 is to strengthen our sobriety, our spiritual growth, and movement towards mending our relationship with our higher power. So whoever that higher power is, if we are to stop the perpetuation of COVID-19, then we need to strengthen our spiritual growth. We need to move towards establish that relationship with that power greater than us, because he knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of this now pandemic. It's not the first pandemic known to man, and it won't be the last, okay? But there is much to gain. It says the biggest requirement for this action is being honest. You and people around you will benefit from this crucial step, okay? In case you didn't know, keeping secrets is threatening, Keeping secrets is threatening to our recovery from COVID-19. Okay. He also did a breakdown of step 4 of Alcoholics Anonymous, where he outlined an inventory that we could use and to address. So he listed inventories like the 7 deadly sins, all right? So we know what they are, right? And so we know that pride heads the procession. It's something about pride, right? But when we do this recovery principle number 4 exercise, we will address, acknowledge, and gain awareness that we have fear, that we are prideful, that we have resentment, that we have anger issues, that we have self-will run riot, that we have self-pity. We have guilt. We have shame. We have broken relationships. We have experienced and conduct abuse, right? We have secrets. But we also have assets. And so that 4-step inventory, like a store takes in their stock as to what's selling, what's not selling, what needs to be thrown out, what needs to be updated. Well, the same applies to the 4th step, right? Bringing about awareness to our attitudes, ideas, behaviors, actions, decisions, choices, going through the spiritual transformation that these 12 steps offer in a spiritual nature, right? To obtain spiritual maturity that will give us that psychic change that's needed for us to make healthier decisions, healthier, have healthier attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. Yes, and utilizing what Donald Lawrence says, you are not a natural being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being walking this natural experience. This is the body. This is the vessel. But if we increase our spirituality, we can learn to apply it to our physical condition. That's why the 12 steps that are spiritual in nature are essential in combating COVID-19 individually and collectively as a human race. Okay? And so he also talked about being searching and fearless, right? And we stopped yesterday at identifying one of the biggest character defects. And that was resentment. Okay? When it says searching in Alcoholics Anonymous, listen. They say take that searchlight and every crack and cranny, look at this mask from the outside to the inside, to the stitches, to the material. Take it to the this, You may just see a mask, but when we do an inventory of our character defects, there's so much more. Why is it pleated? Why is it this way? Why is it pink? Why is it white? Who selected it? Who even brought about the concept? So that's how much work we do in Alcoholics Anonymous to identify our inventory and being searching and fearless so that we can find out what makes us tick. We can find out how we got those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. We can find out how we and what we are made of. Okay. And of course it says fearless. Forget everything and run doesn't work for people in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it ain't going to work for we as a human race with COVID-19. We need to face everything and recover. We need to face everything and be restored. We need to face everything and rebuild. We need to face everything and rejoice. Yes. So that is why these steps are so essential. All right, so the first one that he lists is resentments. Do you wonder why the first one is resentment? Think about it. And let's apply it to COVID-19. Some of us, like me, was resentful that people want to tell us what to do, what to wear, how to act, who to go around. And we had that attitude, well, you can't tell me what to do. And the fact that you're trying to tell me what to do, I resent that. I resent you. Yes. Even though what you are sharing, what you are providing is designed to save my life, but the fact you are telling me what to do or you are suggesting that I do this and I do that, no, I'm about image. I need to show my face. I need to show my makeup. No, you can't tell me what to do, and I resent the fact that you're trying to do it. Whoa! I am resentful for those suggestions by the CDC and the data, the statistics, and the experience of others, right? You are resentful. You can't tell me not to go around my family. You can't tell me not to have dinner with my loved ones. You can't tell me I can't go to these places. I resent that you are even trying to tell me to do this. I got a resentment. I don't care what you say. I do what I want to do. I make my own decisions. And I resent the fact that you are trying to tell me what to do. But like in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't see that the reason why they are sharing this information is to save our lives, not destroy it. But that's when we are closed-minded. That's when we are unwilling. That's when we are dishonest with ourselves, right? So the focus is so much on me, on you. And they say that the self-centeredness is the core of our disease. It's the core of our human nature. Self-centeredness. I. Well, I contributed to contracting COVID-19 because I resented what y'all was trying to tell me what to do. Now I'm ready to listen. I contracted COVID-19, infected some of my family members. Now I need to let go of that resentment so I can save my life and the lives of my grandchildren and others and possibly you. And so what Jason Waller says with this resentment section, I'm going to read it first. And if we have time, which I don't think we will continue it tomorrow, okay? If God breathes life into us and he wakes us up for day number 55. But he says, resentments, let them go. I had an awesome dream last night. Of letting go of resentments against two people that I love so much. I have been sharing and praying about it, but I had that dream, that intuition that I have finally let it go. All right, so this is what Jason Wallace says. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we learned that resentment is a condition or state of mind whereby one relives some past event and feels the emotion from that event as if it were happening right now. Resentment is literally to feel sentire, again, and it is the fuel that feeds the fires of our addiction. Now, we're talking about alcoholism, right? I'm sharing that first. In fact, the original members of AA who wrote the book Alcoholics Anonymous believed resentment was the number one offender and that it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. You want to go to AA, Big Book, page 64. One way to do an inventory is to list memories of people, institutions, or organizations, principles, ideas, or beliefs in events, situations, or circumstances that have triggered positive and negative feelings, including sadness, regret, anger, resentment, fear, bitterness. There will be some items on your list that may appear multiple times. That is okay. Do not try to sort or judge or analyze at this point. For now, just be as thorough as possible. It's important to note that some people will try to avoid writing their moral inventory, feeling embarrassed or fearful about their writing ability, or even about someone else reading what they wrote. I implore you not to let these fears stop you. Until you put it in a tangible form, you still haven't done your fourth step. If there are things that you think are so bad that you just can't include them in your step 4 inventory, you are not alone. I swear to you, your sponsor has heard and probably done the same thing or worse. Rest assured that in the history of AA, there has been something in a fourth step inventory that was so unique or worse that whatever other human being has done, that they had to create a whole new category. All right. And so tomorrow we are going to dissect that and replace the area of focus with applying resentments to COVID-19. Until we meet again, please be safe. Ask yourself, are you in the prevention mode, reactive mode, or restoration mode of COVID-19? Are you being proactive? Are you being reactive? Or are you yet being inactive regarding COVID-19? Ask yourself these questions. Go to Jason Waller's website, download the steps, answer the questions for 1, 2, 3, and 4 as we continue on how to apply the 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to COVID-19. As Dr. James T. Allen said, we can learn and benefit from the wisdom of the 12-step programs. Be safe, and be safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Social distancing. No public places unless you have to. No family gatherings. No. Don't let nobody in, and don't you go out. We do and can recover.